Hello, welcome. So, my name's Brad, and I bought a place in Tennessee about 9, 10 months ago. Um, we were not made aware of a chicken farm being put up across the street from our house. It's within 500 feet. I wouldn't say any more than 500 feet where these barns are going to be. Um, and, it's 3 to 4 barns, up to 44,000 chickens. So, right away I didn't really want that to happen. I reached out to the person who is putting said barn up. They have no ambition to stop doing what they have in plan. They're going to be working directly with Tyson. And, so I decided to educate myself on this, look into what is this going to do? Is it going to mess with the air quality, the water quality, anything like that? So this is my first time ever making videos. The reason why I'm doing so is because as I've dug into this a little bit, I've come to realize that there really isn't too much regulation against these guys. Um, I've seen reports of water contamination, air contamination, soil contamination. Um, in some cases, it looks like underground aquifers were contaminated to the sense of people could not drink or use the water, even in cases of showers and washing dishes and things like that. So I'm just going to kind of learn how to do this and share this information, and maybe I can get some people that's going to join the bandwagon, and we can kind of make it to where at least these chicken barns can be pushed out a little further away from the public eye, so to speak. I mean, I'm not against any kind of agriculture, but the way they've classified these barns, it's like they go under the rule of agriculture, but they have none of the restrictions that agriculture has. So I'm going to do my best to go over these articles, and yeah, hopefully people in the Mckenzie, Tennessee area can kind of get on board and help us get legislators and laws and stuff into place to make it to where these people cannot be so close to people's homes. This directly affects their air, their water, their land, and property value as well. So one of these articles that I have here is from Inside Climate News. And, it's just detailing that these giant chicken houses are overrunning areas. And in particular, this one is from the Delmarva Peninsula. So it's an area along the Chesapeake Bay that encompasses most of Delaware, Maryland's eastern shore, and a spit of eastern Virginia. Hosts one of the nation's highest concentrations of poultry producers. The peninsula is the birthplace of modern American chicken production, where the poultry business, including heavyweights Perdue Farms, Monterey Farms, and Tyson Foods. It also states that, they are entrenched in the local economy, politics, and culture. So, um, this one kind of touch bases on just how much, like 3 times more Americans are eating 3 times more chicken now than they did 50 years ago, and I totally understand that. Um, and that's fine if they want to have more chicken farms, but I just don't think you should be putting them so close to people's houses. Let's see, just this region alone, that's 600 million chickens. That's more than double the tally from the 1960s. So we're gonna skim through this article here. There's a part. Okay, so like this, for example. But recently, more residents have noticed or have started pushing back against big poultry. They're tired, they say, of seeing bucket loaders routinely dump hundreds of dead chickens into mortality composters. They're tired, they say, of the smell of driving home on roads flecked with manure or pulling into their driveways at night through showers of manure particles and feathers that drip past headlights like falling snow. I mean, these are real things from real people. It's it's not just the unpleasantness or diminishing property values that bother people. Many residents worry that emissions from chicken barns, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, volatile organic compounds, particulate matter, mostly from chicken manure, and urine, are making them sick and worsening the region's rate of asthma and respiratory illnesses. Even though these animal feeding operations, or AFOs, emit climate warming gases and air pollution that's linked to illnesses, these air emissions are not generally regulated or monitored under federal or state law. Some of the research into the rules and regulations that I've seen in Tennessee is indeed reflectant upon that. There isn't anything in place that is generally, at least for, um, it's CAFO or CAFCO, I think it is, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit later, but they're exempt. They're, these, they're industrial-sized chicken farming. Let's not mistake that for 1 second. So, they should be under the same guidelines as some of the other farms and businesses, and they're just not. They're completely exempt. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has yet to approve a method for estimating AFO air emissions that would allow regulators to determine if the facilities meet air quality standards under the Clean Air Act. The EPA has also exempted most AFOs from reporting air pollution under the federal Superfund law, which regulates ammonia and hydrogen sulfide as hazardous substances, and under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, or EPCRA. Right here, a federal circuit court overturned those exemptions last year, saying the EPA violated the law, but earlier this year, a member of Congress, including Tom Carper, a Democrat from Delaware, where Sussex County produces more chickens than any other country in the country, began pushing a bill that would make the Superfund exemption permanent. So, in a case like that, like in Tennessee, which we'll see later, the state officials and people in power are 100% opening the doors for this. That legislation was tucked into a government spending bill that Congress passed in March, taking away a powerful tool for understanding air pollution from animal agriculture. Let's see, there's some other parts here I want to touch in this. In the absence of state, see this one. Yeah. In the absence of state or federal safeguards, residents of the Eastern Shore where nearly everyone's livelihood is linked to the poultry industry, and where poultry-heavy counties are among the poorest in the state, have unsuccessfully pushed for local action. They want the state to require an air monitoring study near the AFOs. That at least would tell them what's in the air they're breathing, they believe. And the thing is, they don't want to do that. But, like exactly right here, they're no longer farms. They're the industrial facilities next door. The chicken industry has long dominated the Delmarva Peninsula, but some Eastern Shore residents say the business is different now. Chicken houses were once just low-slung barns here and there. Today the barns are massive, many longer than 600 feet, and each can contain nearly 40,000 birds. Barns used to occupy large tracts of farmland out of view. Today they're being built in groups of 20 or more in some cases, and on some smaller parcels close to residential areas, which would be people like me. Larger AFOs, known as CAFOs, yep, right there, that was the one that I was talking about earlier. Concentrated animal feeding operations have at least 1,000 cattle, 700 dairy cows, 2,500 hogs, or 30,000 broilers. Chickens that are raised for meat. Now, the problem with that is the state of Tennessee directly exempted people with birds for the 30,000 broilers or others called growers. They're exempt from that, so they don't have to follow any rules and guidelines to that. But yeah, they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're so dense. And you can see here, you know, just how close that these chickens are. Look at that. It's just ridiculous. That's a breeding ground. Look, ammonia is an irritant to your lungs, and it does cause respiratory illnesses. But anyway, so asthma rates are high, but there's little regulation. AFOs are among the largest producers of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide in the country. According to the most recent national emissions inventory, of the 3.9 million tons of ammonia emitted in the U.S., 2.2 million tons come from livestock waste and 1 million from synthetic fertilizer. Ammonia can cause respiratory irritation, coughing, and chronic lung disease. Hydrogen sulfide can cause inflammation of the eyes and respiratory tract. And at high concentrations can lead to respiratory tract paralysis and death. Nearly 50% of the workers inside poultry barns suffer from upper respiratory illnesses, according to research, and children living near hog AFOs are more likely to have asthma. So unlike other facilities that emit these potentially harmful compounds in substantial amounts, at least 100 pounds a day, AFOs don't have to say exactly what they're emitting. The EPA requires many AFOs to have permits for discharging polluted water, but there are no similar requirement for air emissions. Now, in the case of Tennessee, they only have to report contaminated water once. You know, and the EPA has no enthusiasm to tackle this. That's 100% true. So, you know, in this article, and I'll leave these links off of this video, and there's going to be more videos to this. It's just going to have to take me time to do it. I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and it's kind of hard to dedicate the amount of time that I need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. See if I'm missing anything else in this. So 2005 to 2015, but more recent industry data from 2017 show that 500 new chicken barns have popped up around the region since 2012. Now you got to understand that one barn can house up to, what they said earlier, 20 to 40,000 chickens. Yeah, 20 to 40,000 chickens for one barn. And a lot of times these barns are being put right next to people's houses. Don't think I'm... Yeah, in the emergency room, a doctor sees more respiratory cases. Satterfield, who tested in support of the bill at a hearing held by a subcommittee of the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, said ammonia levels near poultry CAFOs are at very low levels and they dissipate rapidly into the air. But big poultry opponents on the Eastern Shore don't want to settle for the industry's word. A physician for 40 years worries that constant dusting of particles from the chicken barns near his home has caused a slate of respiratory problems. He placed a monitor outside his house, which he said measured above normal levels of ammonia. Inzerillo also estimates that between 40 to 60% of the patients who come into his emergency room are there because of breathing problems. I mean, it's a direct cause. Okay, so let's get to the next one. I'll leave that link in there for anybody that wants to see it. So now we're going to go to one of the lawsuits that I have found. Company news. Tyson Foods settles air pollution suit. for $500,000. Tyson Foods says yesterday it would spend up to $500,000 to monitor air for ammonia at two chicken farms it owns in western Kentucky. As part of a settlement in a federal lawsuit brought by the Sierra Club and three western Kentucky residents, Tyson agreed Wednesday to plant buffers of trees at other locations. Club members and company officials said, um, and they're not doing that, by the way. They're claiming that they're going to put trees down as a buffer, and I just looked at one this morning. There was no trees separating them. And in a lot of cases, they're 500 feet or right at 500 feet away from someone's home. But Aloma Dew and a local Sierra Club representative said three plaintiffs in the case would receive financial compensation. The amount was not disclosed. The lawsuit filed in 2002 claimed that the farms were so large that they should be regulated under some sort of federal air pollution laws as factories, refineries, and chemical plants. And they're just not. Okay, so now we're going to take a look back here. I don't have anything for soil yet, but I do have stuff underwater. Tyson Foods dumps more pollution into waterways each year than ExxonMobil. Tyson Foods was the second biggest polluter of America's waterways from 2010 to 2014, according to the data the company submitted to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agencies. Toxic release inventory ranking only behind AK Steel Holding Corp. The Tyson Food and its subsidiaries processing plants dumped more than 104 million pounds of pollutants into waterways over those 5 years. More than Cargill, Koch Industries, ExxonMobil Corporation combined. The nitrate compounds. Nitrates can contribute to algae blooms, dead zones, as well as otherwise threatening ecosystems and human health. For example, Tyson's Food was held liable for the contamination of Clear Creek, Missouri that resulted in the killing of at least 100,000 fish. The company was sentenced to pay more than $530,000 on penalties, damages, and environmental improvements. And the thing is the amount of toxins that they're discharging. They're okay. So the amount of toxic discharge reported to the EPA do not include factory farm and fertilizer runoff, which would be the direct cause of these problems. But these also greatly contribute to waterway pollution and nitrate content. For example, the drinking water in Des Moines, Iowa is at risk of breaching federal quality standards due to high nitrate runoff from local agribusinesses. The Des Moines Water Works Board is suing three rural counties responsible for the high nitrate levels in the Raccoon River, and the lawsuit is slated for court this year. Tyson's Food has not been implicated in this suit, but the company did disclose that its pork processing plant in Perry, downstream from the defendant counties and upstream from Des Moines, discharged 107,025 pounds of toxic discharge in 2014. All of our no. Yeah. So all of our human waste goes to a sewage treatment plant, Rumpler said. All of this animal manure gets spread on cropland, over-applied to a laughable degree, and of course it ends up in our water. We have to stop allowing that to happen if we really want to see clean water. The rest of this here just states how they, play the role of, yeah, we want to be better. Okay, and I think that was the last link that I saved. However, nope, right here. So, laws favoring industrial chicken farms. And then, this will probably be the last two I do today. Get this video off. This is probably going to be like a 20-part series or something, at least until we can get something done about this. Okay, so the Tennessean.com. Tennessee lawmakers take up bill to roll back water quality regulations at livestock farms. The Tennessee legislature is poised to pass a bill Thursday that, with a last-minute amendment, would allow many livestock farms to operate without state water quality permits. It would exempt all but the largest farms which produce manure and other liquid waste from mandatory permits. Medium-sized farms could voluntarily apply for permits. Poultry farms with dry waste, no matter their size, would be exempt. That is exactly what these chicken barns are falling under. They're using dry waste. They're using like sawdust, for example, of where the chickens poop to absorb moisture. That's their definition of dry waste. So these barns that are coming up everywhere is directly exempt. Industry representatives praised the bill, a modification of a measure passed last year for eliminating cumbersome regulations, while environmentalists worry that some farmers could cut corners and spill waste into streams and rivers. The agriculture industry, which accounts for 10% of the state's economy, is the leading contributor of water pollution in Tennessee and in the United States. It just goes on to state, they were doing it for the farmers and to make more money. But let's see, it set Tennessee to the federal standards which require permits for farms known to pollute waterways or groundwater. State permits, on the other hand, are meant to prevent pollution in the first place by instituting stringent waste management plans. Now, as far as these chicken farms, it exempted, like right here, it exempted poultry producers because dry waste is a much lower risk for runoff. However, they're required to have their own runoff. And some of these places are being built in flood zones that regularly flood. That's going to directly contaminate the water source in the soil. But, so but dairy, hog, and other farms over a certain size will still need to be permitted. Well, how come we're not doing it to the poultry producers? Yeah, it offers an opportunity for producers to agree to the permit if it's reasonable and if it's something they're willing to engage in. Well, wouldn't air and water and soil quality be a part of that? Yeah, right. See, right here. We're concerned that manure and liquid waste that aren't permitted are going to end up in our streams. Conservation program, let's see, it's not the whole industry that's going to do it, but this is creating the opportunity for bad actors, and that's exactly what these people are doing. Water quality regulators work to prevent waste ponds from leaking or overflowing into waterways. They also seek to control the spread of manure so it will be absorbed into soil instead of leaching into groundwater or running off during a rainstorm. Now, every case that I have seen where these barns are coming up, And a lot of the areas in Tennessee, they're all by creeks, and they have nothing else stopping them. All that water and all that contamination is going to run into the creeks, and it's going to take over that water system. And it takes a long time for the contamination to clean up on its own. Okay, so let's check out this other one here. Yes, this is a long one. I'm just going to look at a couple things here. So, CAFO regulations to be reduced for Tennessee. Now, we mentioned that earlier. It passed. So, why is it? So, poultry operations to start reporting ammonia emissions. Right. But that's under the CAFO legislation, right? Right. But due to a recent ruling issued by the U.S. Court of Appeals for District of Columbia Circuit that overturned EPA's former position to not require this monitoring and reporting. All animal feeding operations are subject to start reporting air emissions from waste. If directed to do so, farms with animal waste air emissions will have to report under the Comprehensive Environment Response, Compensation and Liability Act, and the Emergency Planning Community Right to Know Act. Two programs that are meant to inform the National Response Center and the local first responders of hazards that may call for emergency action. Until now, EPA had provided an exemption from CERCLA reporting of low-level emissions of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide generated from the natural breakdown of animal manure after the agency evaluation demonstrated that any emergency response to such emission reports was unnecessary, impractical, and unlikely. EPA had further previously limited EPCRA reporting of such emissions to one-time reports for continuous releases from large confined animal feeding operations. U.S. Poultry and NPPC, National Pork Producers, intervened in the lawsuit to defend the agency's common sense exemption. Right, but see, you would only had to report it one time on it. One-time reports for continuous releases, right, from large confined animals. Had you fell under the CAFO regulations. Well, if you remember from earlier, they completely exempted these what they claim small size chicken farms. It's industrial sized chicken barns, no matter how you look at it. But, they're exempt from that. So they don't have to worry about reporting any kind of runoffs or air quality checking. None of that. So I'm not sure if there was anything else in here, but I do want to take a brief look. And I'll put this out for video 1. Yep. Let's see. By the way, there's going to be links to all this stuff in the description if you want to check this for yourself. Yeah, I haven't even gotten into the diseases that these birds get and carry. I mean, they're so prevalent to diseases because they're so close together. Oh, here's another thing I wanted to point out. Why is it that Sonny Perdue from Purdue Farms was sworn in as the 31st U.S. Secretary of Agriculture? And he literally states, I will be unapologetic advocate for American agriculture, which is fine if it's agriculture. But don't take these industrial-sized chicken barns and putting them right next to people's houses, you know, 400 or 500 feet away, and calling it agriculture. I think we need a different definition, a separation, so that way these same people running these barns, these industrial-sized barns, never mind you, fall under the same categories as these other big businesses where they have to monitor air quality. They have to monitor water runoff, contamination with the soil and water. And they need to have stringent laws that dictate that they can't be too close to somebody's house. That's what we're asking for. We're not asking for anybody to completely ban them from the state of Tennessee. No. So I don't think I see anything right off the bat here. There's a lot of stuff in this. So I'm just going to leave it in the description, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care.